Hey everyone, welcome back to Robotics. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to have our third lecture where we focus in on rotation matrices. So to motivate this topic, I want to show you a video where a human is playing table tennis against a robot. Now, the human's kind of going easy on the robot, but the robot's doing a pretty good job. And what it's doing is it's changing the position of its paddle so that it hits the ball. But as you'll notice, it also has to orient the paddle carefully so that it hits the ball back with the correct velocity and direction. And this change in orientation is one of the effects of rotation matrices and what I really want to focus on in today's lecture. So today I want to talk about what is a rotation matrix, and then also how do we use these rotation matrices for robotics. So let's start off with a little bit of review. Now, in our previous lecture, which I encourage you to watch if you haven't seen already, we mentioned that RAB is a rotation matrix. RAB tells me the rotation of coordinate frame B with respect to coordinate frame A. And I like to think about this as if I'm standing at A and I'm looking at coordinate frame B. That's RAB. And each column of RAB writes an axis of B back in the coordinates of frame A. So the first column just tells me where is this point X of B written in coordinate frame A. The second column, where is this point Y of B written in coordinate frame A. And finally, the third column is where is this point Z of B, again, written in coordinate frame A. And that's going to be this rotation matrix, RAB. We showed some examples in the previous lecture where for our planar example, the rotation matrix is a 2x2 matrix. And for our three-dimensional world, this rotation matrix with X, Y, and Z axes is a 3x3 matrix. But if I give you some arbitrary matrix, how do you know whether or not that matrix is a valid rotation matrix? Great question. Really, there's two rules that a matrix must follow for it to be a valid rotation matrix. And here are the two rules. The first rule is that R transpose R must be equal to identity. Here I'm using I as shorthand for identity. You might remember that an identity matrix is ones along the diagonal and zeros everywhere else. Identity. So if R transpose R is identity, that's our first rule. The second rule is that the determinant of R must be equal to positive 1. So if an arbitrary matrix satisfies these two rules, then that matrix is a valid rotation matrix. And really, these rules are just reflecting what we've already discussed for coordinate frames. The first equation right here means that the columns of this matrix must be orthonormal, right? So they must be each unit vectors and orthogonal to one another. And we've already said that you must have that for a valid coordinate frame. The second rule, the determinant of R is equal to plus 1, simply enforces the right-handed rule. And so we know that we have to have that for a valid coordinate frame. So these two equations are basically just saying that yes, this is defining a valid coordinate frame. It is a valid rotation matrix. So if you take those rules and you do a bit of math, you can find some pretty useful properties for rotation matrices. And I want to cover three of the most useful ones right here. The first property that's quite useful is that the inverse of a rotation matrix is equal to its transpose. So R inverse is equal to R transpose. This is nice because it's kind of hard to take the inverse usually, but a transpose is super easy to do. So instead of taking the inverse, just take the transpose and you're done. The second rule is that the transpose or the inverse, again, they're the same thing, switches your frame of reference. So RAB transpose is equal to RBA. Let's go back to our example. I'm standing in A, I'm looking at B, that's RAB. If I take the transpose of that, that's equivalent to me now standing in B, looking back at A. So I'm changing the frame of reference by taking this transpose. Finally, the product of rotation matrices is also a rotation matrix. So for example, R1 times R2 is equal to R3, and R3 is a valid rotation matrix. I want to focus on this third property a little bit more because it's got some nice derivations that we can use to kind of reinforce our concepts of what is a rotation matrix. So let's stick with this property, which claims that R1 times R2 equal to R3 is a valid rotation matrix. And I want to try to prove this with two steps. In my first step, I know that if R3 is a valid rotation matrix, then R3 transpose times R3 has got to be equal to the identity matrix, right? This is one of our rules that we originally had for rotation matrices. So R3 is equal to R1, R2. Let's plug that in. So R3 transpose times R3, well, that's going to be equal to R1 times R2 transpose times R1 times R2. Great. So just plugging in is how I get this first equation. Next, there's a transpose property that you might have forgotten, which is A times B. Again, if these are matrices, matrix A times matrix B, the transpose of that is equal to B transpose times A transpose. And so here I've got R1 times R2 transpose, that's equal to R2 transpose times R1 transpose. And now some things start to simplify out. Right? So I've got R1 transpose R1. Take a second and think about it. Right? We know that R1 is a rotation matrix. What does that mean about this multiplication? Well, it's equal to identity, right? So this is going to go away. And then I'm going to have, again, identity is just like 1 in matrix space. So I'll be left with R2 transpose times R2. And yeah, as you know, that's also going to be equal to identity because it's a valid rotation matrix. So this whole thing just simplifies down to the identity matrix. And we've proven our first step. R3 transpose times R3 is the identity matrix. We still have one more step to go, though. We need to show that the determinant of R3 is equal to plus 1. Right? This is enforcing the right-hand rule for this rotation matrix. So I'll say the determinant of R3, that's equal to the determinant of R1 times R2. Again, just plugging in this equation. Now there's a nice property of determinants where the determinant of A times B is equal to the determinant of A times the determinant of B. And I'll apply that right here. So I'll have the determinant of R1 times the determinant of R2. We know a little bit about both of these determinants. We know that because R1 is a rotation matrix, this determinant is plus 1. And similarly, because R2 is a rotation matrix, this determinant is also plus 1. So I've got plus 1 times plus 1. Well, okay, my determinant of R3 is also equal to positive 1. And yes, this is a valid rotation matrix. Cool. So you can multiply rotation matrices and you get rotation matrices. Here are some very common rotation matrices you'll find in practice. So I've started off, let's go with this one right here. This is a pure rotation around the x-axis, where you're rotating theta radians. So rotation around the x-axis by theta units, whether that's degrees or radians, your choice. If you look at this rotation matrix, you'll notice that the first column is unchanged, right? Like we're not changing the x-axis, we're rotating around that axis and changing the other axes. Here, this is pure rotation around the y-axis, same idea. The y-axis remains unchanged and we rotate the other axes. And then finally, this is a definition for pure rotation around the z-axis, where I leave the z-axis 0, 0, 1 and rotate the other two axes, x and y. Again, these are just 3 handy rotation matrices to keep in your back pocket. You can multiply them to get new rotation matrices. So if you want to take an object and rotate it around both the x and y axis, well, you can multiply rotation around x by, theta degrees, and then multiply that by rotation around y by theta degrees, and there you go. Now you've got a new rotation matrix that rotates around both x and y. And you know that the output is a rotation matrix because of the proof we just went through. Okay, so we got these rotation matrices. What do we do with them? Like, how are we going to use these rotation matrices in practice? The main thing we do is we multiply. So the number one application for rotation matrices is we multiply these rotation matrices. And I kind of have hinted at that. We went through the proof. We know if we multiply, we get a valid rotation matrix, and we just talked about some of those common matrices we might want to multiply. So we've kind of set it up. But a key here is the order of multiplication. The order of multiplication will have a big impact on what you're doing with these rotation matrices. So I want to explain the correct order for this multiplication. And it depends on our notation. Actually, the way we've defined this notation is going to help us understand the correct order to multiply these rotation matrices. If you multiply and these subscripts cancel, I'll show you what that means in a second, that you've got the correct order and you're changing your frame of reference. Okay, so let me show you an example. So here I've got this vector P subscript B. It's some position vector written in frame B. If I multiply that by a rotation matrix RAB, then we say that these subscripts cancel. The B and the B right here, these two subscripts right next to each other cancel out. And I'm left with that same position vector now rotated into frame A. So I'm looking at the same position vector just from a different perspective. I've changed my frame of reference. I can use the same trick, but with rotation matrices. So now I've got a rotation matrix RBC. If I multiply that by RAB, again, these B's are right next to each other. They cancel out with our subscript cancellation rule. And I'm left with just RAC, a rotation matrix where I'm standing in A and looking at frame C. And again, this is changing my frame of reference because I started off with RBC, which is me standing in B looking at frame C. And now after this multiplication, I'm standing in A looking at frame C. So I've changed my frame of reference by using this multiplication. Okay, so that's, again, multiplication, but that's one way of thinking about the multiplication. We can also think about this multiplication in a more active sense, where we use these rotation matrices to actively rotate vectors or other coordinate frames. And I'll show you an example of this below. Let's say we want to rotate the base of this prosthetic leg around the y-axis. Here, this is a great chance to reinforce your right-handed rule. The x-axis going to the right, the y-axis going into the board, and the z-axis going up. Yes, this is a valid rotation matrix. The base of the coordinate frame is at this origin, and then the foot is down here at point P. It's 2 units down along the z-axis. And I want to rotate this whole thing around the y-axis. Well, one question you might have, and it's an important question to ask, is what is the right direction? What's like the positive direction of rotation? And to figure out the correct direction of rotation, we have part 2 of the right-handed rule. So you take your right hand, you point your right thumb in the direction of whatever axis it is that you want to rotate around. Here, take the y-axis. So point your thumb to the board and curl your fingers around your thumb. The direction your fingers curl is the positive direction of rotation around that axis. So here, positive direction of rotation is going to be clockwise around this y-axis. So here we are, rotating this leg in the positive direction of rotation. Now, how do we do it? Let's go over here and think about how we multiply. So I've got P, which was my original position of the foot. I'm going to multiply that by pure rotation around the y-axis to get P prime, some new position of the foot. And so this is an active way of thinking about this multiplication because we've got our original position, we're multiplying to get a new position that is rotated by this rotation matrix. The choice of rotation matrix is very intentional. I know I'm rotating around the y-axis, so I picked what we've already defined, pure rotation around the y-axis, and theta is just however many degrees or radians I want to rotate around that y-axis. So if you want to put some numbers to it, we've got 0, 0, because we've got 0 in x, 0 in y, and then 2 units down along the z-axis. So I've got 0, 0, negative 2 is my original position of the foot. When I do this multiplication, and you can get this from the previous slide, so I get pure rotation around the y-axis, I end up with P prime, this new position that results from this matrix multiplication. Okay. So in this lecture, we talked about what is a rotation matrix. We gave a very clear definition. We know what rules it needs to satisfy. And we know some properties for that rotation matrix. We also know how we can use rotation matrices by multiplying them to either change my frame of reference or to actively rotate an object. Before you move on, make sure you take a second to reinforce your understanding by doing the practice set. You can find it in the description or the pinned comment. Remember, the first page is the practice problems to think about, and then the next pages have their answers for you to review. Once you've done that, feel free to move on to the next lecture, in which we're going to combine the rotation matrices we talked about today with the position vectors from our previous lecture to make something new called a transformation matrix. So I look forward to seeing you.